Hi, and welcome to Remote Tutor Training. My name is Amanda Weeks, and I am the Education Development Coordinator here at Catherine McCauley. I'm also the Online Tutoring Coordinator, so if you're interested, you will let me know, and we can get everything set up. First, some quick, fast facts from our online tutoring program. The most common platform is Zoom. We have other platforms we can use that we'll talk about later, but the most common is Zoom. We have about 52 tutors that work online, always getting more, but right now about 52. We have about 85 students that meet online. We have more students than tutors because some tutors meet with multiple students. There's about 90 hours of online tutoring per week. Some students meet more than 1 hour per week. The biggest challenges that we've seen are Wi-Fi access. So you need to have a relatively fast Wi-Fi signal. And then students might not have a device other than their mobile phone, which means that it limits what platforms you can use. So we need to work with our students with what they have. Why become a remote tutor? There's so many reasons. So first, you can travel. If you want to go overseas, you can still meet with your student if you want to. And vice versa. Your student, if they're going to visit their family overseas, they can still meet with you. If a student moves, they don't have to completely find a different tutor. They can still meet with the tutor that they're used to. There's flexibility in remote tutoring. You can change the day, the time. You can change the platform. You can change the how you want to meet with your student. Maybe you just want to text and talk to each other that way. There's just multiple options. COVID concerns. This has been a big issue with working in person at the Catherine McCauley Center is when you're teaching English, you want to be able to see the mouth. If you're wearing a mask, you can't see the person's mouth. So it makes it more difficult. Whereas online, you don't have to wear a mask. When you're working through our online textbook, there are games that the student can play that are part of the program. Or if you wanted to create online games for your student using Kahoot or Quizlet or any of those things, you could do that. Childcare has become less of an issue now that our Children's Learning Center has opened at the center. But if you have a student that cannot get away, they cannot come here, they can't find someone to watch their children, they can stay at home with their children, meet online. So first, let's go through some terminology for technology. Zoom bombing. This is where someone that you don't know will randomly appear in your Zoom call. This is why it's important to have a waiting room and to have a password to get in. Asynchronous versus synchronous is asynchronous is not meeting at the same time. So this video is asynchronous. I am teaching you, but I'm not there with you at the same time. Synchronous is generally what online tutoring looks like, where you and your student are meeting at the same time. The waiting room, again, is a great feature of Zoom, where you would have the student come into your waiting room, you let them in so that random people don't just jump onto your call. The chat box is a feature that allows the student maybe to type questions, or if you're in a larger meeting, you can type questions rather than trying to interrupt and get somebody's attention. Feedback and echo is where you can hear other things. Maybe the speaker on your computer is too loud, so you can hear your voice multiple times. Breakout rooms, not generally used by online tutors when they're meeting with just one student. But if you had more than one student, or if you're teaching a small group and you want to have them break out into separate, smaller groups so they can think, pair, share, and then come back together, you can definitely do that. If you're worried about your background, well, this is my office, but if you're worried about people seeing that, you can set up a virtual background. So your student can do the same thing. If your student or you are having difficulties with Wi-Fi, you can have them call in or dial in for the meeting. Private messaging, or PM, is when you're in a larger group and you want to message one person directly rather than the entire group. And then our different pieces of technology. Desktop is where you have a monitor that is separate from the keyboard. Sorry. A laptop is when your monitor and your keyboard are one and the same. Tablet is when it's a screen that might have a keyboard that can pop up and you can type on the screen. And a mobile device is a phone. So there's different types of mobile devices, and we'll talk about different platforms that work on those. So the platforms, what can we use? Zoom, again, most common. The pros is it works on all computers, all mobile devices, no matter what type of phone you have, it works. There's an option to screen share. So like I'm showing my screen with you, you can show your screen with your student, which is very nice when you're talking about a specific passage in a book or you want to see them typing or what have you. Annotation is nice. So in Zoom, you can actually write on the screen, which is pretty cool. There's breakout rooms and other features that you might not use with online tutoring, but they're there if you need them. One con is that you can't, if you have more than 2 people, you can only meet for 40 minutes unless you have a paid version. This pops up mostly when we are having maybe new tutors observe, or when you're having your first meeting with your student, so you want to have someone from Catherine McCauley and you and your student there. In that case, we might have you use our paid version. And not a big deal, but max of 100 people. So if you're having a huge meeting, max of 100 people. WhatsApp is something we use a lot here at Catherine McCauley. You can text, you can audio call, you can video call. It's an app that you put on your phone, and you can do this internationally. So a lot of our clients and students have this app because it's used internationally. Some cons to using this is that it's only available on mobile devices because it is an app, and there's no screen share option. So if I wanted to show you my screen, I'm talking to you on my phone, I would have to flip my camera around to show my screen. So I want to show you this. What did you think? You can have a maximum of 50 people, and there is a web extension for messaging, but not for calling. So not something you really need to worry about. Facebook Messenger is pretty popular, actually. Facebook works on all computers and mobile devices. It's completely free. There's no time limits. You can audio call, so if you just want to talk on the phone, or you can video call, you can screen share, and a lot of people already have Facebook, so that's kind of nice. All you have to do is become friends on Facebook with your student, and then you can message all you want. Cons, screen sharing option doesn't work for more than 8 people. Not a big deal. Maximum of 50 people per meeting. Skype isn't used as often anymore because Zoom has kind of taken over. But the nice thing about Skype is it works on all computers and mobile devices. There's an option to share your screen, and it's completely free. I equate Skype to a lower tech version of Zoom that doesn't have as many bells and whistles. There's no screen share option on your smartphone, so you can only look at each other. So again, if you want to share what you're looking at, you have to turn your phone around. Maximum of 50 people per meeting. And if you wanted to, I don't expect you to, but you can pay money to call landlines and international numbers. So you don't have to pay for it if you're using Wi-Fi or mobile data. But if you wanted to call a landline, you can. FaceTime is very popular. It comes pre-installed on Apple devices. So if you have an iPhone, it's already on there. It's very user-friendly. You can do audio call or video call. Some of the cons are that they're only available on Apple devices. So I have an Android, so I cannot use FaceTime. Again, there's no screen sharing, so you would have to flip your phone around. And there's not many additional features other than seeing someone's face and talking to them. But if you and your student have Apple devices, it's already on your phone. Why not use it? And maximum 32 people per meeting. All right, so you're like, count me in. what do I do now? First, let the staff know that you're interested in tutoring remotely. We can have you do an observation, a online tutoring observation with someone that's already doing this, so you can see how it looks if you want. Once you're ready, our team will match you with a student, and you will be given your student's information. That way, you can reach out to your student, introduce yourself, decide on a time you want to meet, on a platform you want to meet, and talk about the technology you have. You will share that information with the staff, and we will help you with that first session. And then once you meet the first time, you're on your way. You can meet as many times as you want online. After each session, we do want you to complete the tutoring log that will be sent to you from Catherine McCauley. It is a Google form, or a Google sheet, sorry. It's very important that you log the hours that you are spending online with your student, because this helps us report numbers for our grants. We do the same thing at Catherine McCauley at the center. The way to shape your hour, the most common way, is begin with conversation. You can use conversation topics. So if you're worried about talking to your student, we have books and books of conversation topics that we can lend you. You can talk about what's going on with you. So what did you do this week? What's new to you? You can pick a random subject, maybe something that you talked about in the book last week, and just run with it, whatever you prefer. The middle part of the hour is the book work. Just like in person, you work on the book as though you were working in the same room, but it's not a race. You take your time moving through. So if you're doing repetition, I say something, you say something, and then have them do the same, and back and forth. You want to use keywords to describe pages in the book. So, for example, if I'm talking about this page here, I could talk about the picture. I could talk about the gray section. I can talk about the white section. I can talk about the words at the bottom. You want to be descriptive with it. If you're using the side-by-side series, there's a fun zone that is part of the ebook that allows for extra practice. It has games. It has listening scripts. So in parts of the book where it wants the student to listen, there's script for you to read. If you're in Challenger and working on short stories and analyzing the short stories, the workbook is very important with that too. It's not online, but you can have the student show you what they're doing. At the end, wrap it up with conversation. You can get personal if you want. You can make sure to confirm your next session and check in. How do they feel about what they learned today? Do you need to review next time? Can we move on next time? Whatever you prefer. Now, when you're not in the same room, you cannot see your students' handwriting. So what can you do to help them with their writing skills? The workbook is important. Again, you can have them show you what they wrote. If you are concerned about not knowing the answers in their workbook, we have a correlation key, we have an answer key, everything that you need for that. You can also have your student ask them to spell the word. So can you spell this for me, to see if they're understanding? Again, physically show them the page. One thing that a lot of people forget is that you can have the student email, text, or write you letters. So if you want to see their handwriting, they can send you a letter. But in today's world, writing has many different forms. Very commonly is typing. So have them send you a letter, have them send you an email, and you can see their grammar, you can see their spelling, and work with that. Writing can always be improved later. Right now, we're working on English. We want them to be able to communicate. So writing, yes, it's important, but speaking is very important. Tips and tricks for remote tutoring. So we have a lot here, but some things to keep in mind are establish routines so that your student knows what to expect. Start with conversation and work on activities from the book. Incorporate online pictures and videos. If you're having screen share, you can pick out videos on YouTube. You can pick out pictures that you find on Google that help supplement the book. End with conversation and leave on a positive note. Always be supportive of where your student, the progress your student is making. You want to reduce the amount of talking that the teacher does. You want the student to do the most talking. Facilitate rather than instruct. Again, have the student do most of the work. Allow the student time to think. And that's really hard when you're online, is maybe giving them, it's really hard when you're online because you're staring at each other. But something you can do is give them time to think. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get some coffee. Or I'll be right back. I'm going to run into the other room. It doesn't have to be you sitting in front of your computer all the time. Ask open-ended questions, so they have to use their English skills. Be patient. Technology isn't always the greatest, so you have to be patient with your student and patient with yourself. Determine what device your student is using. If they're only using their phone, that limits everything. If they can use a tablet, if they can use their laptop, if they have a desktop, that opens things up much more. Practice the technologies before your first session. Practice how to use Zoom or whatever platform you're using. And did we mention, be patient. Technology is not always our friend. It is most of the time, but sometimes it acts up. So how do you make sure your students are learning? This is an example of the virtual log. So you would write down the date, when you met, your name, and you don't have to write your name every time because we know it's you, what book you're in, the pages you've covered, and you can write yourself notes. So next week, do 26 through 28 in the workbook, whatever. And then the staff only section shows whether or not we have logged it in our system. So the staff only section is only for Catherine McCauley staff. You don't have to do anything with that column. If you're working in the side-by-side books, there's a tab that says virtual testing log, and there are chapter tests, mid-book tests, end-of-book tests that you would log as you go. If you are in What's Next or Challenger series or Lawbook, there are no tests. But if you're in side-by-side, you would log them here. And you want the student to get higher than an 80%. So this chapter 8 test, I would have recommended the student redo. So other tips to consider. Before you meet with your student, you can send them materials. You can use physical objects, just like I'm doing here. I'm holding things up. I'm holding my phone up. I can point at the globe behind me. Use screen sharing to your advantage. It's really nice to be able to see what the student's looking at, or the student to see what you're looking at. Make sure to do the repetition activities like in side-by-side. So I say this line, you say that line. Let's switch it up back and forth. Personalize. Share personal stories, pictures, videos. They're in your house, so or wherever you are, so you can make it personalized. Check in with the student. Is the format you're using working? Do we need to change anything? What's your favorite part of the class? Maybe you could do more of that. Give the student choice of text materials to some extent. You want to use the book, but maybe they want to use some newspaper clippings, or you find an article online that you want to talk about. And then you can plan an active learning opportunity to switch things up. Let's say you're working on the names for clothing items. You can take them to your closet and you can show them, what is this item? What is this called? You can go to your kitchen. You can have a cooking session together. You don't have to just sit in front of your computer the whole time. So if you have any questions, you can contact me, Amanda W., at cmccr.org, or Ben at cmc-cr.org. Or if you just want to contact our education division, education@cmc-cr.org. We have some PDFs we can send to you that have written instructions. If you want to come into the facility and have a one-on-one tutoring session with myself or with anyone else in the building, we can set that up. And that way we can make sure that you are able to log in, make sure you know how to use the tools and all of that. But if you need it, we can help. Well, thank you for joining me. That was a pretty fast overview of online tutoring, but again, if you need anything, let us know.